Father Lawrence Murphy was a man with charm and social skills. Small of stature, he was lively, sociable, charismatic Irishman who also had a rare ability to communicate fluently in sign language. Watching him conduct a service with his hands is said to have been more moving than if words had been spoken. He was the mentor and spiritual guide to hundreds of vulnerable boys. And the one thing they learned from him is that there are some disgusting individuals in the adult world who gratify their sleazy appetites without a thought of others. Father Murphy was a predatory pedophile whose crimes were all the more revolting for the helplessness of his victims. The people at St. James School, St. Francis City, Wisconsin, were deaf. This was a boarding school, so there was no escape at night for the vile priest who had power over them. Anyway, he was the only adult many of them could communicate with. They were given no sexual education, so they had no way to understand what he was doing. Some may have been taught they deserved this treatment. Stephen Garr was taken to St. John's at the age of 8 after a high fever made him deaf. He was crying as his parents left, and it was Father Murphy who offered him comfort then, only to abuse him later. Mr. Garr also witnessed about a dozen other boys being abused. Murphy was so powerful and it was so hard, he said in an interview 4 decades later. You couldn't get out, it was like a prison. I felt so confused. Here I had Father Murphy touching me. I would be like, God, what's right? It was an awful thing.
They are the boys of St. John's School for the Deaf, young, innocent, vulnerable. And many of them were molested by the man who was supposed to take care of them, Father Lawrence Murphy.
It's disgusting what happened to me from Father Murphy.
Stephen Geyer is one of those victims. He was just 9 when he arrived at St. John's. This is a picture of his first communion. This is the man who molested him and nearly 200 other deaf boys over 20 years. Stephen Geyer was first abused when he was about 13. One night, Father Murphy took him from the boys' dorm on the 2nd floor up to a closet on the 3rd floor.
He then asked me to take my pajamas off. I was confused and said, why? But he kept on me and tried over and over again and tried to force me to take my pajamas off. And I said no. And then he forced me and pulled my pajamas down. And I didn't really understand. This is a man who works for God, and he's doing this to me? He's touching my private areas? And so he actually did masturbate me. I was quite shocked. His face and his eyes looked so mean, like he was just, I don't know what.
Father Murphy molested Stephen Geyer 4 times. Geyer saw other boys molested too, often late at night.
And I noticed Father Murphy walking through our dorm room, the bedroom, and there was another boy in the next bed. And I thought, what is he doing? And so he woke up the boy, and then he was sexually abusing him right there in that bed.
Was he a monster?
Yes, more than a monster, definitely more than a monster. It was like he was the devil in a priest outfit.
Geyer was on the school's basketball team. Father Murphy took a special interest in young athletes. How did Father Murphy select his victims?
The boys would all go into the shower. You know, like after we were done playing basketball, Father Murphy was always there, and he was always watching all of us boys in the shower. It was like he was sizing everybody up or something.
Geyer left St. John's when he was 16, but Father Murphy continued abusing other boys for years. Geyer tried to tell others what happened, but no one would believe him.
I did, though, try to report this to 3 different priests in Madison, and each one said to me, oh, this can't be, no way.
But now we know the truth.
Father Murphy had not a care about deaf children. He just completely and totally used us. He just used all these deaf boys' bodies because he could.
Now 59, Geyer has high blood pressure, heart problems, and anger management issues that he attributes to the abuse. Did Father Murphy ruin your life?
Yes.
Another of his former victims, Joe Daniels, said, I felt anger and shame Little Otto Bodzinski would hide under his bed, crying when it was time to go back to the boarding school. His parents did not know what was wrong because, as his 89-year-old mother, Irene Bodzinski, explained years later, "I never learned sign language. When you had a deaf kid, the public nurse would say, send them to some school. We were looking for a good place. Who would think any harm will come to a young child?" There is an old photograph of Otto Bodzinski taken in 1962 when he was 13, when 10 other deaf boys who made up the St. John's School basketball team. Father Murphy is standing alongside them in a long clerical gown. 5 of the 11 boys were sexually abused. Bodzinski witnessed a boy of his age, Pat Cave, being abused in the dormitory. They met again 42 years later. Until that meeting in 2004, Pat Cave thought he was the only boy to have suffered the priest's attentions. In fact, he was probably not even the only victim in his family. He had an older brother who also went to St. John's, who was frequently called into Father Murphy's office at night for long periods. The brothers never discussed why. His brother died in a motorcycle accident at the age of 21.
A big story today, whether the Vatican, mainly Pope Benedict, covered up sex abuse in the Milwaukee Archdiocese.
The Pope was a cardinal at the time of these allegations. We are joined by Journal Sentinel reporter, religion reporter, Anissa Johnson. And Anissa, let's go back to a little bit of background about Father Murphy. I mean, this guy was accused of just the worst kind of predatory behavior, right?
That's correct. He was at the School for the Deaf, St. John's School for the Deaf, from about 1950 to 1974. In that time, the Archdiocese, a psychologist, I believe, who examined him for the Archdiocese, said he may have molested as many as 200 boys, often using the confessional, which is a significant betrayal of their vows, using the confessional to lure them in.
And the thing about this story that is so shocking, I guess you could say, is that we're looking at whether the cardinal at the time, who was now the Pope, Pope Benedict, may have covered this up.
That's correct. The allegation is that in, I believe, 1996, Archbishop Weakland sent letters asking to have him defrocked or laicized, and they were not acted on.
You mentioned Rembert Weakland. One of the things that struck me about the New York Times article this morning was this sort of notion that Rembert Weakland was in any way a whistleblower. I mean, this guy had a lot of opportunities to get rid of this guy on his own without getting any help from the Pope, did he not?
And that's the question that I posed to the Archdiocese today, which is, if they knew about it since the 70s, they said this has been well documented since the 70s, if they knew about it since the 70s, why did they not act to defrock him before 1996, 2 years before his death? I did not get an answer to that specific question. They say they took other actions. They did not remove him from ministry, but they gave him a leave from the school. They sent him up north and allowed him to go up north. They should probably speak for themselves, but they could not answer the why he wasn't defrocked before why they didn't attempt to defrock him before 1996.
Which has been the case throughout
and quite a story, since members of the Survivors Network, which is a Milwaukee-based group now in Rome. Anissa, thanks very much.
Thank you.
It's an unbelievable story.
No one knows exactly how many boys suffer at Father Murphy's hands in the 24 years he was running the school. It could have been as much as 200. Most said nothing about it for decades, if at all. James Smith had bottled it for so long that when he began talking about it at the age of 62, he started to shake and cry. He said, "I will be playing baseball and 2 boys will come and say, 'Father Murphy wants you to come and see him.' I will refuse to go, and pretty soon I was dragged into his office and molested again. I never told anyone. I thought I was alone." But others did talk. Among the documents uncovered by the New York Times, there is an account written in 1974 by a youth who had left St. John's 4 years earlier and was prepared to go to court and testify against his abuser. He was so determined to be believed that he volunteered to give a description of Father Murphy's penis and asked that the court check whether he was telling the truth. Soon after being sent to the school in 1964, the boy had gone into trouble with one of the staff and was sent to see Father Murphy in his office. "Father Murphy scolded me as a bad boy," he wrote. "Then he encouraged me to his bedroom and taught me about sex. At the first thing, he spanked my ass with his belt and he started touching my penis while he explained the sex things to me. Few days later, again he called me to his bedroom and asked me to take my clothes off. So he touched my penis and explained the sex things to me. So he started to bother me many times for coming to his bedroom and forced me to play the immodest things with him. Few days later, he came to the boys' dormitory and to my bed and touched my penis while, name redacted, saw us from his bed. During my confession with Father Murphy, few times he played with my penis in the bedroom, in the bathroom, in Father Murphy's office. During the summertime, Father Murphy took some boys and me to his cottage, and on the way I was a passenger and sat near Father Murphy driving while he touched my penis in front of the other boys. For my 6 years, I suffered bad from Father Murphy. It is hard to imagine what reserve of courage the youth must have drawn on to write such an account of a recent childhood experience. In that year, 1974, Father Murphy was last removed from the school which he had run since 1950, but that was all.
Do you think it's possible to forgive Father Murphy?
Mother!